This podcast features criminologists discussing sensitive themes and topics. Listener discretion is advised.
After a young Australian woman Googled herself, the search results would shock her and change the trajectory of her life forever. This is the Noelle Martin story. Hi, Meghan.
Hi, Amy.
How are you today?
I'm great. I'm smiling.
I know. It's always great to be here with you. It's funny because I'm thinking every time we start a case, I talk about how excited I am to cover the story. And it had me thinking of how lucky we are that this is what we do.
I know.
No matter how long we do this for, because I think at this point we're almost at 200 cases. I am still shocked at stories. I'm still learning things. I'm more curious than ever. So I just feel so lucky. So Meghan, sorry to get sappy, but I just want to thank all of our amazing listeners. We have the smartest, most thoughtful community who inspire us to continue searching for these important stories.
Couldn't agree more, Amy.
So today's case is one of those cases where we don't spend so much time focusing on Noelle and her background, but rather her story is a jumping off point for a much larger conversation. And you'll find that some of the themes we discuss in today's episode have come up a little bit in past episodes, but this specific topic is a first for us and one that will leave you thinking, and if you're anything like me, leave you worrying.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
You've been warned. All right, Meghan, let's meet Noelle. There's very little available on Noelle's background, but what I do know is that she was born sometime around 1995 into a conservative Indian Catholic household, and her family resided in Perth, which is in Western Australia. Noelle was very skilled in the game of chess. In fact, she won the 2010 Western Australia's Women's Chess Championship at the age of just 16.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and then she later taught chess techniques to other students. So she was pretty accomplished in that realm. I can't even say I really know how to play chess. So.
James tried to teach me once or twice, but I was pretty bad at it. I went back to checkers.
I was just going to say, you and me can play checkers. Let James play chess. As a young adult, Noelle attended Macquarie University in Sydney, where she majored in philosophy and law, and she was working towards becoming a lawyer. And during this time, on a slow evening in 2012, Noelle, who was 18 years at this time, did what many of us have likely done. She Googled herself. But the difference here is, Meghan, she didn't just Google her name, as I have, I'm sure you have.
Yes.
You have, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But she also ran a photo of herself, which is known as a Google image reverse. Have you ever done that?
No, I wouldn't probably know how to do that.
I was going to say, I'd never heard of it. And if someone asked me to do it, I would have no clue how to do this.
Nope.
But after the story, I think I'm going to take the time to learn how to do this. And maybe you should as well.
Oh, no.
So using an image from her Facebook profile, Noelle put her photo into Google just to see what would come back. But she was shocked and appalled when her search results yielded explicit images of her plastered over dozens of pornographic websites.
Oh, okay. Yes. You know what? When you were saying she did the search, I was like, I think I know where this case is going now. Oh,
Yep.
My gosh, this is devastating.
And now Noelle had never posted anything close to an explicit photo of herself, but here were hundreds of various sexual poses and situations, and many that also included extremely degrading words and phrases. And Meghan, these all featured her face. And there was no doubt that this was her face.
Right. Okay.
Now, as you may have guessed, unbeknownst to her, someone had taken her face without her consent and very convincingly photoshopped it onto pornographic images. In an interview that Noelle later did, she said, quote, "It was shock, disgust, my stomach sank. I wanted to vomit. You can't even describe that feeling. Everything changed in the click of a second." Noelle was understandably outraged, but the question was, who would want to do this to her? And though she had no known enemies and no exes, no ex-lovers who were scorned in any way, she could not fathom who would want to hurt her. And the nature of the images made it very clear to her that her face had been specifically targeted, and this was quite personal.
My goodness, okay.
As if this wasn't bad enough, under some of the images were comments such as, "She sent this to me, and this is definitely her." Furthermore, some posted her personal information, including her name and even her home address.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh. Freaking out. I'd be freaking out.
Yes. And she was of course she was freaking out, or any of us would, right? But she says she was incredibly embarrassed and ashamed of all these images, though they were obviously not created by her and not even her in activities that she had partaken in.
Right.
But she had so much shame, Meghan, that she waited over a year to tell her parents about the situation.
Gosh.
And even then, she didn't include them in her fight to get these images removed. In fact, she didn't even tell many of her friends, but she would go to the police for help.
I mean, I don't know how I would have told my parents something like that either, to be honest. Like maybe my mom, possibly, but how do you tell your father that? It's very complicated. So
I also don't think that parents understand technology and they would be like, well, that must be you if it's a picture of you. How could it not be?
That's part of not, knowing how to explain it and knowing how to explain that, this isn't because I put this out there.
Yeah.
This is something that happened to me, and I do think that's just terrible.
Mm-hmm. So as I said, she did go to the police. Sadly, however, they were less than helpful. One of the main problems here, Meghan, is that at this time, there were no specific laws in Australia against someone's face being photoshopped onto other images. So she was in an uphill battle here. She then tried contacting federal government agencies, but still she got no help. So Noelle enlisted the help of a private investigator. But again, she was met with this hurdle. With no specific relevant laws on the books, there really wasn't much that anyone could do, and the images remained on the internet. Not to mention how nearly impossible it would be to find out who was posting these images.
Right.
So Noelle tried to take matters into her own hands. She created fake accounts to confront whoever had posted the images, but instead of finding any sort of justice, Noelle was victimized further in the comment section.
Oh, I bet.
She received responses like, "It's supposed to be a compliment. What do you expect when you post all these images of yourself? We're just men being men. What did you expect? And if you don't want it, don't post any images of yourself."
Oh, people are so brave behind the walls of the internet, right?
Right? And again, the issue was that Noelle never posted any explicit images of herself, nor ever took any images or shared any images. So it's not even like images got in the hands of wrong people, because that happens sometimes as well. This is not that.
Which still doesn't make it her fault either. I'd like to point out if those were private, we just want to point that out. But
of course, no.
Yeah, understood.
But for her, it was even more shocking because she had these were situations that were new to her as well.
Right.
Someone had very simply stolen her face from innocuous photos off of her and her friends' social media accounts and then plastered it into these images. Noelle tried contacting various site administrators and made requests to have the images taken down. And while this did work temporarily, the images would soon reappear. And some sites didn't even respond. Or get this, Meghan, some would even try and extort her.
The sites?
The sites, yeah. You want to hear the most horrific one? There was one particular site host that said they would only delete the material if Noelle sent them nude photos within 24 hours.
That is the most shocking thing.
Yep.
Which is, of course, totally illegal as well. I wonder what battle she had with these sites as well, if any. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this poor woman, she was clearly very brave to even try to get these images taken down, knowing she's up against the internet. This kind of, it's like borderless. I don't even know how I would get in touch with a site administrator.
I would try like hell, but at every turn, this is so discouraging too. So you have to keep fighting, but you don't know who you're fighting. You're fighting a million different people and entities. And this is really overwhelming.
Yes. And although many of Noelle's efforts in this area fell flat, she felt empowered to be doing anything in a situation that had left her feeling so very helpless. Mm-hmm. So after several years of unsuccessfully fighting to have the images removed, Noelle changed her tactic. Instead of focusing on getting the explicit images deleted, she worked to reclaim her name and change the law surrounding internet images. After obtaining her Bachelor of Laws and Arts, now this terminology is a bit different than here in the U.S., right, but from what I understand, it's similar to the amount of time and credits that we have here. But she got a Bachelor's of Law and a Bachelor's of Arts at the same time. She then pursued a Master of Laws from the University of Western Australia. As she said in an interview, quote, "I directed my energy away from the rabbit hole and into campaigning to change the law surrounding image-based abuse." In 2012, Noelle was admitted as a lawyer in Western Australia and started her campaign to get laws on the books to criminalize image-based abuse. Mm-hmm. Now, today, in the majority of Australian states and territories, image-based abuse is completely criminalized, and there's even a government agency dedicated to helping victims remove this material. And this agency is also tasked with finding social media companies who fail to remove internet images from their platform within 48 hours. Now, this change of law is due to advocates like Noelle, who has fought for this type of change.
We talk about this oftentimes, but the law cannot always anticipate technology. So it has to be changed, but it does sound like it was done in a relatively, I wouldn't say short, that's why I say relative, but relatively quickly in Australia.
Yes, but sadly, as she fought this issue, Noelle continued to be targeted, and in some cases, even more so, because now the perps weren't happy that she was so outspoken.
Right.
But Noelle was steadfast in her fighting, saying, quote, "I'm not currently trying to find out who the perpetrators were originally or to even get the material removed. For me, healing has been about refusing to let them have ownership of me. It's taken almost a decade, but I'm finally starting to feel positive again."
Oh, good for her.
And while there's still so much to be done on the front of image-based abuse, Noelle's work on getting laws on the books around this issue has put her on the map as a global advocate for change.
Wow.
In 2019, she was awarded Young Western Australian of the Year and listed as an honoree on the Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia list of 2019. And again, this is all for her efforts to help criminalize image-based sexual abuse across Australia. Noelle also had the honor of standing with two separate attorney generals in South Wales and in Western Australia at history-making press conferences announcing new criminal offenses to distribute, record, and threaten to distribute or record intimate images and videos without consent. And her work has extended beyond her home country. Noelle has been a voice for justice in news media all over the world, from the United States to the UK. She's also spoke out about these issues in Japan, Germany, France, Spain, Ireland. The list goes on. And her work has been featured in many outlets. So she's doing a lot of incredible work. She's also an advisor for the Pathways to Digital Justice Project with the World Economic Forum. Now, I don't know about you, but I am patiently awaiting for her to write a memoir. That's what I think she needs to do. She's very busy.
I was thinking of that, and I was wondering, because you often find your cases from a memoir. I thought maybe that's how you found this case, but no. Okay. How did you find it?
I started being interested in the ideas of AI and deepfakes, which we're going to dive pretty deep into in a minute. And then I was interested in women who have been victimized but have also gone on to change policy in the area. And let me tell you, a lot of victims of these deepfakes, they're anonymous, as they should be, because they're, they're fighting these battles, but they don't want their names to be public.
Sure.
So before we get to the laws and policies, I want to spend some time talking about image-based sexual abuse. Now, image abuse is not new. For years, perhaps even decades, people have been using Photoshop to manipulate images, but the techniques are much more advanced now. You've heard of a deepfake before?
Yes, I have.
So we first saw the use of similar technology in 2016. And this is when researchers from Stanford and the University of Erlangen-Nuremberg created a system called face-to-face. Now, using this system, a person was able to edit the facial movements of a subject and reanimate them with the use of a source actor. Now, I'm thinking you've seen these videos before because they were pretty widely available throughout the internet. The team had demonstrated their work by manipulating the facial movements of George Bush, Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, and this was done in real time with a source actor. Does this sound familiar to you?
Yes, now it does.
It is quite fascinating because it looks so unbelievably real.
Oh, it's terrifying.
And I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a bunch of them with Tom Cruise that look so realistic that I bet most people would not be able to tell that it wasn't actually Tom Cruise.
That's funny. I just thought that was Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise.
But you could fall down quite the rabbit hole when you start looking at some of these videos. They're quite shocking.
Yeah, I could see how you did.
Yes. About a year after these videos emerged, the term deepfake began to crop up in online spaces. And this was mostly on Reddit, where users had combined the phrase deep learning and fake to describe how a new type of artificial intelligence could learn the movements of a face and replicate them convincingly on any video. At this time, doing this required quite complex software and also a strong technology background. So this is what made it difficult for the masses to create convincing deepfakes.
Got it.
However, in 2017, the Reddit community began creating deepfakes for themselves and posted fake pornographic videos of Wonder Woman actor Gal Gadot. And it didn't take long for others to follow. Soon there were many other pornographic deepfake videos with Godot's face onto unnamed actors. And not long after, images of other famous people would emerge, such as Emma Watson and Kim Kardashian. And this has continued over the years, more recently even Taylor Swift. Now, it's particularly easy for AI to learn celebrity facial expressions because there are so many images and videos of them available on the internet. So it actually became pretty easy for regular internet users to create these explicit images and videos. And then in January of 2018, a Reddit user created FaceApp, which was a simple algorithm-based system that allowed non-tech-savvy users to create deepfakes. So this is the problem now. This technology that was once difficult to understand is now in the hands of the masses.
Right.
And there were some other apps that would pop up. There was a Chinese app named Zhao that showed up on the market, and it refers to itself as a deepfake application. And this quickly went viral. It didn't take long for social media platforms to recognize the abuse that was coming out of these new technologies. After the Face app came out in 2018, Reddit did put a ban on sexually explicit deepfakes, saying that they constituted involuntary pornography. And Twitter was also soon to follow. But unfortunately, deepfake porn had already spread and was becoming more easily accessible. And there's some other pretty disturbing trends that have been emerging. This year on TikTok, AI-powered depictions of child crime victims describing violence they had experienced in gruesome detail started popping up all over. Have you seen any of these?
Yeah, I did see some of them.
And these are considered modified deepfakes as they do not alter existing images, but instead they create new ones. So this is just to show how this technology just keeps changing and is victimizing people in different ways. And these videos in particular re-victimize families and are just very upsetting to the masses. But even though these are so disturbing, they have been viewed several million times and shared. As a result of these ongoing videos, YouTube updated its cyberbullying and harassment policies and reports that they will no longer allow content that, quote, realistically simulates minors and other victims of crimes narrating their deaths or the violence they have experienced. Now, this seems crazy to me that there's so much that could be done with the use of AI that, every other day I feel like one of these social media platforms has to put out a new rule or a new standard in which their users have to abide by.
I guess so. I mean, if the law can't keep up, actually the law can't keep up, but even more so, these platforms can't keep up. And this is like their specialty.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the laws because as of this recording, at least 10 states have already enacted deepfake related laws. There's scores of more measures that are under consideration, and we'll probably see some changes across the country. But for now, I can tell you that Georgia, Hawaii, Texas, and Virginia have laws on the books that criminalize non-consensual deepfake porn. I think this will be problematic, as consent always is problematic, right?
Yes, and proof of it can be.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to ask you what the charges were, so that makes sense, non-consensual.
Yep.
Deepfake pornography, but I'm just curious what the penalties are, anything like that, or too soon to tell. And I wonder, I mean, if it's non-consensual deepfake pornography, I would imagine those offenders will be placed on a sex offender registry as well.
Correct, but the biggest issue is it's very rare to be able to catch the perpetrator of these types of crimes.
Yeah, I mean, such is the case, or it has been the case with human trafficking as well. We finally enacted laws in the 2000s, and then we've just had a really hard time finding the actual, like the real head perpetrators. Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about, the internet doesn't have borders.
I know.
And there's jurisdictional issues because, even in Australia, I believe every state and territory in Australia does have some sort of law against image-based abuse. But just like it does here, the laws vary based on where you are and the punishment varies. And again, if you're in Australia as a victim, but your perpetrator is in another country without the laws, then we see these jurisdictional issues. So I think it needs to be there needs to be a way that this needs to be looked at as an international issue with, punishment across the board.
I mean, yes, it's been really hard too in terms of resources because it takes a ton of resources and manpower and investigators that have tech experience and not just tech. I mean, you have to be really advanced here. So it's a lot of money, unfortunately, too.
Yeah. And as we see a lot of times, there's also states that are giving victims the right to sue those who create images using their likeness. So California and Illinois have passed laws like that. I also believe Minnesota and New York are states that do both. They have laws that target using deepfakes, and they actually even went a little further and talked about using deepfakes in politics.
Yes.
Being that it's an election year, we're seeing more and more people using AI technology to mislead voters.
Of course.
Other than some of the changes in laws, there's also been some tech solutions that have been created to deal with this problem. But as we mentioned, this technology is moving fast, so solutions need to keep up. So there are now some deepfake detection algorithms which can be used to flag deepfakes on places like social media platforms. But again, I think you would have to be pretty tech savvy to use this. And I know I'm certainly not, but maybe other people are. Another suggested mechanism is to require companies offering AI tools to include digital watermarks to identify content generated within their applications.
Okay.
So, there's some good ideas out there. And as I said, there's a lot more legislation in the works right now. And there's a lot of debate around the issue. But Meghan, these things are never simple. And as with anything, there is another side to this debate. As Jenna Leventoff, a First Amendment lawyer at the ACLU, aptly pointed out, quote, while deepfakes can cause harm, free speech protections also apply to them, and lawmakers should make sure that they don't go beyond existing exceptions to free speech, such as defamation, fraud, and obscenity, when they try to regulate the emerging technology.
Oh, I see.
So it's not as easy as it sounds because we do have to look at where's the line between, abuse-based image and free speech.
I don't think it sounded easy in the first place, just to be clear.
Yeah.
I thought it sounded incredibly complicated.
Yes. Some caution and respond by warning lawmakers that they should not target the technology that can be used to create deep fakes, but rather they should start with small fixes that can solve tangible problems. So basically, some people are worried that this could shut down innovations that are important in other arenas. You don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yep.
Because as we've seen, AI can do really incredible things and has done incredible things for society. So as with anything else, you want to make sure you don't overcorrect. Recently, deepfakes became more of a front page story because our beloved Taylor Swift became a victim. And many would say this is the height of her popularity in February of 2024. And no one messes with Taylor Swift. You should have seen, did you do any research on this? Because the Swifties were quick to jump into action when Taylor was
I didn't have to do any research. It was all over our Women in Crime Instagram, and it just popped up all the time.
And even the White House had a response after this happened to Taylor.
Yes.
White House Press Secretary Karen Jean-Pierre addressed the issue, saying social media companies should create and enforce their own rules to prevent the spread of misinformation and images. And one of the most frightening things, Meghan, is it's not just images and video. There are voice fakes also. And now there are two cases I want to highlight. Have you heard of a voice fake? Oh, actually, James did a voice fake of us. Do you recall?
Yes, I do recall that he did a voice fake of us. Yours was hilarious.
Mine was so very funny, and I didn't remember that till this moment. So yes, it's very simple to use AI. If you have enough hours of someone's voice, you can pretty much have them say anything. And we've seen this used in good fun, but this can also be used in criminal ways.
Do you think it would have been good fun if I had called your son and played the voice fake we made of you canceling his birthday this year? Do you think at 8 he would have been able to handle that?
I don't think so.
I thought about it, but I thought he would lose his mind. So
it did sound like me. That's the scary part.
Well, it was you in some way.
It's true.
So
it was me. So recently in Arizona, there was this incredibly scary case. A woman by the name of Jennifer DiStefano received a phone call one day. And this phone call is every parent's worst nightmare. Her daughter had been kidnapped.
Ugh.
On the phone, she heard her 15-year-old daughter crying and then heard her daughter say, "Mom, help me, these bad men have me." She begged and pleaded as the phone was taken from her. And a man then got on the phone saying, quote, "Listen here, I have your daughter. You tell anyone, you call the cops, and I'm going to pump her stomach so full of drugs." He further said he would, quote, "have his way with her." And then he would drop the daughter off in Mexico and she would never be seen again.
So this is someone's idea of a funny prank?
Well, it's more than a prank. So Jennifer called 911 from someone else's phone while she negotiated with the alleged kidnappers until police arrived. Now, at first, these bad guys set the ransom at $1 million, said that Jennifer could get her daughter back.
Oh, I see.
If she gave them $1 million, all the while hearing her daughter crying for help. Mom, help me. They then lowered it to $50,000 when Jennifer told them that $1 million was impossible. First red flag. That's quite a jump. $1 million to $50,000.
Well, not experienced kidnappers.
Yes. So she then asked for a routing number and wiring instructions, but the man on the phone refused that method because he said it could be traced and he demanded cash instead. Now, luckily, while all of this was going on, actually the mother was at one of her other child's school concerts, which is just horrifying. So there were a lot of people around. And somebody in the group mentioned the possibility of a scam. So what they did was somebody called her daughter from another phone, and this is when the truth was revealed. Thankfully, her daughter was totally fine. Can you imagine how traumatizing this would be to pick up the phone and hear your child crying for help?
No, I can't wait to hear you tell me that these people were caught, and I hope it's a very severe punishment. But okay, go ahead.
Well, not only were they not caught,
Oh.
You ready to be pissed off, Meghan? Jennifer tried to file a police report, but she was dismissed and told that it was just a prank call.
I'd like to clarify, first of all, that is unbelievable. I thought it was a prank call before they were demanding ransom, and I still thought it was criminal in itself, but that's horrible. What year was that?
This just happened in early 2024, very recently.
And the police wouldn't take a report for this.
No, and for those of you who might be wondering how they were able to get Jennifer's daughter's voice, it's not that difficult, unfortunately, because nowadays with Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook, people post videos of themselves all the time. So these people who are skilled in this technology just scan the internet for, different versions of this person's voice, and they're able to make it realistic like that.
Yes, it's absolutely terrifying, and it's the reason why James won't let TD Bank use his voice as verification.
Yes. That's actually very smart. When I first heard that technology, I thought it was brilliant. Oh, that's so smart. But it's very bad. Very, very bad.
Very bad, yeah.
I guess now nobody can try to steal James's money because we all know he doesn't use the technology.
Well, yeah, he actually got into an argument with a customer service representative about how dangerous it was, too. And he was right.
I know, he's very right. Now, Jennifer is now an advocate, and she recently testified in the U.S. Senate about the dangers of AI and urged lawmakers to act in order to prevent scams like this from hurting other people. She said, quote, "If left uncontrolled, unregulated, and we are all unprotected without consequence, it will rewrite our understanding and perception of what is and what is not truth. It will erode our sense of familiar as it corrodes our confidence in what is real and what is not." So I think it's incredible that she sprung into action. She was clearly a victim here, and she wasn't getting any justice at all. And so she's making things happen just like Noelle did. She sprung into action, and she's trying to get help for other people that this might happen to in the future.
Trying to make the system, better, probably as a way to grapple what they had to go through without the assistance. It's almost a way as well, I would argue, of taking some control and power back after being victimized in that way.
Yeah. And it's not just happening in the U.S. Obviously, Australia, like we talked about today's case, but recently a man in Hong Kong was duped after taking part in a video conference call in which, Meghan, unbeknownst to him, he was the only real person. The rest of the group were fake representatives of real people.
Oh my God.
And when you hear what happened in this call, you're not going to believe this. During the call, the employee was instructed to transfer $200 million in Hong Kong dollars, which is $25.6 million in US dollars, to several Hong Kong bank accounts across 15 transfers. A week later, it was revealed to be a scam.
Oh, and he did it, of course. I mean, because he thought he was on a real call.
So I'm not sure if the scammers were caught. I'm pretty sure they have not yet been caught from what I've read. And I have no idea who's going to be responsible for that large sum of missing funds. We're talking about over $25 million. Can you imagine being that employee? It's not his fault, But
No, of course it's not his fault. Oh my gosh, no. You know what it reminded me of? It's not an AI, but it reminded me of the Louise Ogborn case. If you remember the McDonald's employees where someone was calling in and instructing them to basically assault her for some reason. It reminded me of that.
Yeah, it's similar. It also, not to put light on this situation, but I'm also picturing like a 13-year-old kid like in his parents' basement who has like this $25 million that he just defrauded from this big Hong Kong bank.
Unbelievable.
I don't think that's what happens. It's probably a larger criminal ring. But, this is a very complicated situation. And it's so difficult to make policies because the technology changes so quickly. But luckily, there are several organizations that are doing a lot of great work to get laws on the books to protect people from this type of abuse. Recently, the Biden administration issued an executive order to set standards and manage the risk of AI, including a standard to develop quote, tools to test and help ensure that AI systems are safe, secure, and trustworthy. Again, how they're going to do that, I'm not sure.
Right.
What I find interesting personally is the Innocence Project has been a pretty loud voice in this area as far as policy is concerned. The Innocence Project is proactively pursuing pretrial litigation and policy advocacy to prevent the use of unreliable AI technology and even the misuse of potentially reliable AI technology, right? Because even if you have good technology, if it's used for the wrong reasons or gets in the wrong hands, that's a problem.
Right.
Now, if you recall episode 152, Portia Woodruff, we dealt with this. It's a facial recognition software that led to an innocent woman being implicated.
Yep.
So that's why we see AI being heavily discussed topic in innocence work, because there have been at least 7 confirmed cases of misidentification due to the use of facial recognition technology. So there's this concern that these are going to exacerbate issues that we see already, such as racial inequalities in policing and in the criminal legal system in general. So there's a lot to be done in this area, and I am happy to see so many organizations involved in this work. There are also ways for concerned community members to influence and encourage local leaders to help regulate the use of these technologies by local law enforcement and other agencies.
Ow.
Well, as suggested by Amanda Wallen, one of the Innocence Project's state policy advocates, quote, there are great reasons to go to your local city council or town council meetings. Mm-hmm. That's where these tech presentations happen. On the very local level, those representatives are the people who are voting whether to use tax dollars or public money to fund this stuff.
Okay.
If you are interested in learning more, I would suggest doing some research on this area, see what's going on in your local jurisdiction. You can also check out the Brennan Center for Justice. They have been doing a lot of work in this area. They have some interesting reports. cybercivilrightsinitiative.org. And then one of the coolest websites I came across, citizen.org, there's a tracker there where you can look at individual state legislation surrounding these issues.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say for the record that I'm going to do research about my local legislation. This episode was very illuminating for me. I did not know a lot of this. So I'm going to be doing my own research right now. Yes. And I'm very curious to see what Pennsylvania has in store for me.
And by your own research, we're going to ask James to do a reverse image of our faces to make sure nothing's going on out there.
Well, that's clearly a starting point because I don't know how to do that. And I wouldn't have ever thought to do that. But now certainly I am.
Yes. Again, I just want to reiterate the importance of a global response because of these jurisdictional barriers. So I hope we see more movement on the international level in this area.
Oh my gosh, Amy, this was so interesting. I'm so glad to hear that Noelle and some of the other people that you discussed also took such an active role in helping move the ball forward in this legislation. That's great to see. Unfortunately, it's probably what has to be done. They have to take some measures because it seemed like nobody was doing it for them. But I was glad to hear that. And oh my gosh, I'm terrified and hopeful and all of it at the same time. But really interesting episode today.
All right. Well, thank you, Meghan. And thank you so much to our listeners. And we hope to catch you next time on Women in Crime.
Women in Crime is written and hosted by Meghan Sachs and Amy Shlosberg. Our producer is James Varga. Script editing is by Abagail Belcastro. Audio editing is by Siler Burr and Jose Alfonso. And music is by Desert Media. If you enjoy the show, please remember to follow and leave a review. You can also support the show through Patreon, where you can get access to additional ad-free content such as exclusive full-length episodes, lectures, a book club, and virtual happy hours with Meghan and Amy. For more information, visit patreon.com/womenandcrime.
Sources for today's episode include noelmartin.org, Brennan Center for Justice, Forbes, Australian Broadcasting Corporation, news.com.au, The Guardian, Time Magazine, TechSpot.com, The Innocence Project, Elle Magazine, Noelle's TEDx Talk, WonderWomanTech.com, and Rolling Stone.